My husband has been making new and wonderful things up here for me. So, I want you to close your eyes a second and picture this. I'm sitting in my living room in my recliner. My coffee's sitting next to me, but it's cold again. Maybe I left it in the microwave. There is a rumpled load of laundry. It's sitting in the dryer. There might be a rumpled load in the basket, if I want to admit it, sitting on the floor in my bedroom. I'm sitting there and I'm trying to get my thoughts together for today's class. And I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they come up and interrupt me about every 2 minutes. Mama, can you please get this? Mama, can we do this? With questions, comments, requests. And my thoughts, they feel a bit jumbled and convoluted. I've been up since 6 and been awake since at least 4. Have I brushed my teeth yet? Did I take my medicine this morning? I'm not sure. Okay, so how does that picture make you feel? Overwhelmed, right? How often do we feel overwhelmed? And I can't remember. Did I take my medicine this morning? See, there you go. And honestly, I'm not sure, but I am sure that the constant interruptions, the never-ending to-do list, who has a never-ending to-do list? They're starting to make me feel frustrated and tired and burnt out if I think about that picture. And my morning just started. Okay, so what's missing? What am I missing? Because, I'm feeling a little burnt. Maybe what I'm missing is some magical me time, right? Some quiet where I can sit down and read and actually focus my thoughts and make more than 2 words together without being interrupted. Maybe I need to go jump on the treadmill and exercise. That helps. It does. That's a legitimate strategy. Maybe I just need a break, right? A day where the husband keeps the kids and I get to go get a pedicure or get away from the house. Maybe I need to call my mom and my sister and say, hey, let's go out to dinner. A relaxing time away, a girls' night out. That's going to help, right? I mean, yeah, sure. Maybe I just need time to do what I enjoy. A soak in the bathtub, a book to read. I love to sew. Maybe I need time to sew, right? And with the year of uncertainty that we've really all had, I mean, everybody's year has been uncertain. There has been change upon change upon change upon change. There's been this element of turning the world upside down. We've become even more frantic to find these escapes. I mean, right? Haven't we all? I have been overwhelmingly reminded in the last few years that all of these pursuits and any feelings that I'm going to get from them are very temporary. Very temporary. All of these things are temporary. Does that make them bad? No, absolutely not. Taking care of our physical bodies is a good thing. In fact, God tells us to. I mean, and fellowship, we are commanded to fellowship. That's not a bad thing to want and need fellowship. And rest, God himself rested. There is nothing wrong with any of those things. But am I depending on those temporary needs, those temporary remedies, to sustain my soul? That's a big question, isn't it? It made me stop and think. Am I depending on temporary remedies to sustain my soul? Through the ups and downs of a chaotic day, I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. My days are chaotic. Through the ups and downs of life, everybody has ups and downs of life. We all have them. Through COVID, through learning how to homeschool, through dinners, through health challenges, this year has been new lessons in challenging health for me. Because if I am, it is no wonder I am tired and burned out, because it's not going to work. Those things will not sustain my soul. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God. the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired and weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope or wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary, and they will walk and not be faint. It's Isaiah 40:28 through 31. Temporary self-care is no substitute for the eternal soul care that only the Lord can provide us. And he doesn't grow weary. How amazing is that? Do you know anybody who doesn't grow weary? Even my 3-year-old eventually gives up and collapses. It says that young men stumble and fall. But think about that. How often do we reach for that self? How often do we reach for that self? It's temporary self-care is no substitute for eternal soul care that only the Lord can provide for us. I don't need to find extra hours in the day for self-care. I need to place my hope in the Lord. Somewhere in the grind of the daily to-dos, the frustrations, the challenges of daily life, we kind of lose our way, don't we? I mean, I do. Please tell me I'm not alone in that.
You're not alone.
Okay, thank you. And we find ourselves really clinging to things that cannot possibly sustain us. They can't. It's just not even possible. We settle for self. We settle for temporary. We settle for hopelessness. It's blank on my screen. I had to make sure it actually showed up. Hope. The power of it, the place of it in our lives, it has been on my mind for probably a couple of years now. It's been like there in the back, and I've been reading different devotionals, and I've been doing different studies and thinking about hope and what it means to me and why it's important. And I'm not talking about rose-colored glass optimism, because sometimes we confuse the two. We do. And I'm doing a study right now through 1 Peter, ironically enough, that focuses on be hopeful. Now, I'm not going to go line by line through Peter, because Lauren has been doing that beautifully. And his class goes so well with what we're going to talk about, but also is intimidating to somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to teach them. We're going to have some 1 Peter. Oh, we just did that. No. So bear with me. But I do want to share with you some of what I feel like I have been learning about hope. This is Psalm 147, 7 through 11. Sing to the Lord with thanksgiving. Make melody to our God on the lyre. He covers the heavens with clouds, and he prepares rain for the earth. He makes grass grow on the hills. He gives the beasts their food, and to the young ravens that cry. His delight is not in the strength of the horse, nor his pleasure in the legs of man. But the Lord takes pleasure in those who fear him and in those who hope in his steadfast love. God takes pleasure in hope, in our hope. The hope of the righteous brings joy, but the expectation of the wicked will perish. Our hope is tied up with our joy in ways that we don't understand, and maybe we never will. But if we don't have hope, our expectation is death. Hope brings joy, and without it, like I said, there's just the expectation of death, perishing. That's pretty glum. It makes it a little easier to understand why people make the choices they do if they don't have something, right? If they don't have hope, what is there? So I just did a basic word search for hope. Pulled up my BibleHub.com, hope. It is listed over 550 times. I was kind of shocked by that. I didn't expect it to be that many. I was like, okay, wow. In Corinthians, it tells us, as for prophecies, they will pass away. And you guys all know these verses. As for tongues, they're going to cease. As for knowledge, it also will pass away. For we know in part, we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, and then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now, faith, hope, and love abide. These three, but the greatest of these is love. Hope is in this lineup. I mean, we talk about faith a lot. We talk about love a lot, and those are fantastic, and I am not trying to diminish them in any way. But hope is in this lineup of things that will abide, and some versions even say endure. Right up there with faith and love. Our hope and where we put it and what we set it on matters. It matters. And if we're not careful with it, if we're putting it on the things that are not going to sustain us, we're going to be having some problems. So what is hope? How do you guys define hope? How would you define hope?
I know it's used in defining faith.
It is, which is interesting, right?
Faith is the substance of things hoped for.
I looked that verse up in Hebrews, and it's also sometimes listed as the confidence of things hoped for. So faith is part of our confidence and hope, or say it backwards, hope is our confidence of faith, right? That's pretty powerful. Well, if you look it up in the dictionary, and you look it up in like the Bible, breaking apart the word, and my brain just went dead on what that word is, so you're welcome. And there was a noun and a verb definition, but we're using the verb hope. It's to expect with confidence, to cherish a desire with anticipation. And the Greek word was translated from a word called elpis, or something like that, meaning expectation, trust, confidence, expectation of what is sure. How many days do you think go by without using the word hope in your life? Think about that. How often do we use that word? A lot. You're right, a lot. Oh man, I really hope it doesn't rain because we're going camping tonight and my kids are really excited. Oh man, I really hope we're on time because I'm teaching today and I need an extra few minutes to sit and calm my nerves. I hope it's not cancer. Whatever it is, I just hope it's not cancer. I hope you'll be okay. Whoever, fill in the blank. How about, I really hope they aren't angry. I feel like I messed that up. We use it a lot, don't we? Everyone hopes. We all hope. And no one purposely hopes in the hopeless. I don't purposely hope on what's hopeless. Everybody gets up for the day motivated by hope of some kind, or sometimes paralyzed by hopelessness. Hoping is so natural and so frequent, we don't even realize how it's shaping our days. We don't even realize how it shapes our life. But I want you to think about the things you think about when you're saying, oh, I hope that doesn't happen, or I hope that goes that way. Are any of those things certain? No. We often use the word hope because of uncertainty, right? Rain, disease, how other people are going to react. All of those things are capricious. I mean, we have no control over that. There is nothing sure in those. There is nothing set in a lot of the things that we say we hope for. But the Bible uses it differently. The Bible uses hope with confidence and certainty, right? Faith is the substance of hope or the confidence of hope? Confidence. So hope has something we desire. It has an object or someone that we hope or that will possibly fulfill that desire. And it has an expectation, an anticipation of an outcome. Right? Think about it. If you can break hope apart, that's kind of where you end up. You end up with, okay, I desire that it will have, no rain. My object or someone that I hope will fulfill that, maybe God. I hope God could bless us that way this weekend. And my expectation or thing I'm anticipating is a nice weekend camping. All of our hopes are kind of made up of these parts. Whatever we want to happen, whoever we expect to make it happen, and whatever the outcome is of what's going to happen. It might be that we just desire to be loved. It might be that we just want to be protected or to be understood. It always has like this looking forward to something or someone to satisfy that, and then it always carries that end result that we want to happen. So I've been really brought face to face a lot in my life, and like I said, the last couple of years it's been even more in the forefront of my brain. Do I live with a singleness of hope? Or do I have fickle hope? Is it constantly moving from one thing to the next? Am I constantly hoping and anticipating for things that are not going to sustain me? A lot of this uncertainty in our lives doesn't come because we don't get what we hoped for, but it's because we spend so much time hoping for the wrong things or things that they're temporary. How often do we have hopes or expectations, and when they aren't met, we're distressed? It even says that. Proverbs even tells us that hope deferred can make us heartsick. So I better be really careful with where I'm putting my hope, because I don't want to be heartsick. The Bible really has a lot to say about hope. So if we're breaking down hope into these three parts, what should the desire be driving our hope? And I'm not saying I have this figured out. I'm just trying to share with you guys where I'm at and what I feel like I've learned about hope. The Bible also says a lot about desires and what we should and shouldn't be desiring. Now, David, in Psalm 27:4, he tells us, "One thing have I asked of the Lord, one thing that will I seek after." One thing he's going to ask of the Lord, and he's going to seek it. "That I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple." His hope, his one desire, it wasn't power, wasn't control, wasn't things. It wasn't safety or victory or vengeance, which is saying a lot because David was being chased, he was persecuted, and eventually became king where he kind of messed up. But this is a powerful statement. This man, we are told, is a man after God's heart. And his desire, he says, one thing, that I can dwell in the house of the Lord. One thing. And in Ephesians, we're told there's one hope. Ephesians 4:4 says, "There is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all." We are called to one hope. One hope. Did you have something?
It sounds like we need another word for what we use every day.
Right? That's kind of where I ended up. I'm like, okay, these are not hope. These are just things that maybe happen, maybe not. But that's not where I want my confidence. And then in 1 John, this is 3 verses 1 through 3. See what kind of love the Father has given to us? That we should be called the children of God, and so we are. And the reason why the world does not know us is that it didn't know him. Beloved, we are God's children now. And what we will be has not yet appeared. But we know that when he appears, we shall be like him because we shall see him as he is. And everyone who thus hopes in him purifies himself as he is pure. Our hope purifies us. Our hope in the one thing, our one hope. And so, like I said, I'm doing a study through 1 Peter right now, and its focus is hope. And we're going to read, and I will be going back to these verses in 1 Peter, and I know Lauren has covered them far better than I ever could. But I really want to share with you what was exciting about this to me. So this is 1 Peter 1, 3 through 8. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, which is more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And though you have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Oh, well, that's the wrong slide in the wrong order, so we'll go there. Where there is Christ, there is hope. It is not the fact of life that determines hope, but the faith of life. This is from the man who wrote the commentary that I'm reading. Think about that, though, for a second. It is not the fact of life that determines hope, but the faith of life. How many people do we know around us who put their hope in things that are not sustainable? They have life, but they have no hope. But where there is Christ, there is hope. And as a Christian, we have a living hope. Think about that. Think about what something living means. And it's because we trust, guess what? A living Christ. And it tells us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. We have a living hope because we trust a living Christ. And according to great mercy, he is caused to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And this hope, guess what? We can be confident in it. We can be sure of it. This hope is living. It is grounded on the living Word of God. So then down in verses 22 through 25, I think, is where I'll be at. Having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart. Since you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and abiding Word of God. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flowers of grass. The grass withers, the flower falls, but the word of the Lord remains forever. A living hope, made possible by the living Son of God. And this hope, since it's living, it has life. That means it grows. It can become greater. It can become more beautiful over time. Now we're going to go backwards, because that was the slide I needed. Hope is living based on the living Word and made possible by the living Son. What does time do to most hopes? Yeah. Yeah, it does. Destroys it. But the passing of time only makes the Christian's hope that much more glorious, right? We're that much closer. It's that much more beautiful. I mean, you've seen faith. I mean, we have Penny sitting here as a beautiful example of a life of faith. I remember thinking my grandmother was one of the most beautiful people because her faith had sustained her through life. She had a living hope. Our hope is not perishable. The passing of time makes it that much more glorious. And there are really two places we can look for hope. We can look at the world around us. Go ahead and do this. Or we can look at the Creator. And only one of those is a secure hope. I wrote this class and I have like a whole another like 5 pages, and I was trying to decide where's a natural kind of breaking point for it. That's kind of where we're at. So I'm not sure if we keep going or if we kind of talk about it a little bit. But the rest of it, we talk about how our hope is secure. The hope is everlasting to the end. And we are told, as Lauren so beautifully put it this morning, that our hope in testing and trials, I can't even talk today. That's how nervous I was today. And that our hope will be fulfilled. And those are beautiful, beautiful, wonderful things. As somebody who deals with pain every day, hope to me is my lifeboat. It really is. When you wake up in the morning and you start the day already tired and already hurting and already overwhelmed because you know your body is not going to do what you want it to do, you're not left with a lot to hang on. You really aren't. I mean, I can't always take care of my kids the way I want to. I can't serve my husband the way I want to. I can't necessarily even serve my church family the way I want to or wish I could. So you're not really left with much to hang on to some days. And I think that's why the subject of hope has been so important to me. Without that, I couldn't do it. I frankly don't know how anybody does. I really don't. Hope is my lifeboat. Hope is my lifeboat. I wanted to go over to Hebrews and read the verse on hope. I was trying to remember the exact wording, and my brain, I don't rely on my brain because I know it will get it wrong. I don't know if anybody else has that, but right? Let me see if I can find it. Okay, well, my brain is not cooperating. So if one of you find it. I even looked it up this morning while I was sitting in church thinking, oh, that I need to remember where that is so we can read it. All right, Ronnie, where's the verse about hope being the confident faith? It's 11:1. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I don't see it.
I know, it's right in front of me. I literally was reading all around it and still missing it. So faith is the assurance or confidence of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. The confidence. We can have confidence in our faith if we tie it up with our hope.
We might hope for good weather. We might hope that it's not cancer. We might hope whatever. But like GK said, we almost need another word because it's not real.
It's not real hope.
It's
almost like wish.
confidence in
Right?
It's more than a wish. It's confidence that we will have a life with God forever.
Yeah. If you go back over into Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 19, he says, "Therefore, brothers, since we have confidence to enter the holy places by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain that is through this flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith." This new and living way. We have a living hope. How fantastic is that? How much can you grow from that? How much can we do from that if we are setting our hope on the living hope and not the things that just temporary? We just have like 2 more minutes, so I am going to stop there.
We have a tendency to hope those things. We don't want it to rain, and we don't want it to be cancer. We don't want to have that confrontation or discomfort.
Right.
Because we're trying to run from what Lauren was trying to teach us today.
Right.
We have this false sense that I'm only secure when I feel comfortable.
Yes.
And it's not about our comfort. We're going to feel discomfort, persecution.
We should.
Difficulty. And if
Yes.
we're not, then we're not really in the hope that we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the rest of it goes. And I don't know if I'm teaching again in a few weeks or whenever Carol asks me to teach again. We'll pick this up and we'll go through the idea that our hope is secure, that we can have secure, confident hope in trials and testing. Not only can we should.
That's where it's at.
That's where it's at. Exactly. That is exactly where it's at. That's where we need to have it. And if we don't, we're going to drown.
Makes me think of the song that we sing, how it's like, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Like,
I have been singing that.
anything less than that
Is nothing.
Yeah.
Is
and
nothing.
His blood is everything. So, like, the fact that that's where our foundation of hope is building off of. And
Yeah, absolutely. I was humming that all week while I was putting this together. Well, thank you ladies so much for your attention. Yes. Yes, Penny, go ahead. She was getting my attention for you.
I was just, this has just been going through my mind in another way, but it's the same thing with this hope. When we just think we cannot do it, there's just no way, is the fact that God has a purpose for our lives, and He's put us where we are, and He gives us then the power to, if we have the faith and the hope, He gives us that power to do it. So, you know, it's all woven, interwoven, and I'm still trying to figure it all out. I've really been going through this lately because grace, you know, we say grace is something that we get we don't deserve.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more to grace. When Paul was doing things that there was no way, and being persecuted and everything else, he always said it was because of God's purpose in his life, God's will, that this happened.
Right.
And so I think we, you know, in thinking about our hope and trying to wrestle with all that when we think we can't do it, in prayer, if we give it to God, knowing that that's His purpose, He's going to give us the power some way. And it takes such a pressure off of what's going through our mind. I can't.
It really
We
does.
have to give it to God and know that He has that power, and that's what He wants us to do, what's right, or, you know, whatever we're having to go through at the time, what we know we should do but think we can't. There's a power there, but it's all interwoven with our hope and with.
There is a power there, and not only is it interwoven, it glorifies God.
Mm-hmm.
When we go beyond ourselves and do what we think there is no possible way we can do, think of how much glory that gives to God.
But I you know, and I know prayer is so important when we just, you know, when we're struggling with whatever we're struggling with, that in praying we have to, you know, pray with that confidence that God will give us the power and, you know, to fulfill whatever hope, whatever we need.
It's so interwoven, there's like no disconnecting it. There's no disconnecting hope from your faith. There's no disconnecting love from any of it. There's no disconnecting God's grace from working throughout it. And there's no disconnecting His glory through all of it. I mean, that's the point. And so even I mean, even these few thoughts I've had about hope, it's such a small piece. It's such a small piece. It's so much bigger than that. But every small piece we put in to help us build that up, to build up that confidence, to build up that faith, I feel like, yeah, go for it.
Satan is constantly trying to convince us that God doesn't love us.
Yes.
And so when we say those words, and I've said them too, you know, I hope for this, and it doesn't happen, then Satan plants that seed. Well, God must not really love you, because God can just make it not rain on a weekend.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware of that too, that our separation from God was so drastic, and sometimes I think we lose sight of that, that there was no way we could get back to God except that God came to earth and died.
Yeah.
It was only through him that we could get back. And so now that foundation of hope is so strong and should be so strong in us. When Satan gives us those lies, we could say, no, our hope is in a God that provided a pathway back to him.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I can have hope in. That's the only way I know that God's love is there.
Yep.
It's not through this or that or this circumstance or that.
I think when we look at the distance as well from where we've come, that's such an important thing to remember. Then we can look at the people around us with more grace and with more of God's love, and our hope is going to mean more if we realize that distance and we are fully aware of that. So yeah. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time and your attention. And like I said, I have more written up on it. And whenever Carol asks me to step in and teach again, we'll keep talking about hope.